Several analysts I spoke to at NVIDIA's recent events called it the power gate, and the power gate was going to be the biggest cost hurdle going forward. AI, we know, is driving the construction of large computing warehouses that require way more power than traditional data centers. McKinsey, for example, says that data center electricity use will double over this decade to 8% of all U.S. power demand, up from 4%. The latest International Energy Agency report stated that ChatGPT consumes roughly 2.9 watts per hour of electricity per request. What that really means is running a 60-watt light bulb for 3 minutes for one ChatGPT request. That's 10 times as much electricity as a Google search. You said it, TSMC did beat revenue and profit expectations in its first quarter, but soaring electricity costs are eating into profits. The company forecasts a 25% increase in electricity costs starting this past April that would reduce gross margins by up to 0.8 percentage points and also contribute to higher costs for customers and competitors, according to the CEO on the earnings call this morning. TSMC's power costs are emblematic, though, of a greater problem facing firms all around the United States. How are they going to power these AI machines when so much of the infrastructure is outdated? Tech execs are weighing in too. Elon Musk warning there'll be a shortage of power for running AI chips, and we could start to see that as early as next year. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy telling Fortune that there's not enough power for large language models. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman saying we need an energy breakthrough for any future AI technology going forward. And just yesterday, ARM CEO warning that AI's thirst for electricity is insatiable and could consume a quarter of U.S. power by 2030, so much higher than McKinsey's stat.
Our Christina Partsenevelos is here at Post 9 with the fallout on ASML. What happened?
Well, it has to do with bookings and sales. So they make the chip equipment, and it's very expensive. It can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And the latest earnings report shows that customers are really just holding back on orders, especially for their top-end extreme ultraviolet machines, so the EUV machines. Q1 net sales dropped 22% year over year, driven by a drop in bookings, down about 4% year over year, specifically because firms like TSMC and Samsung held off new orders as they have to work through their current stockpiles. China remains very strong, as the CEO said on the earnings call. It contributes roughly 49% of total revenues.
Okay, guys. So in the past month, we've seen that all the semiconductors manufacturers' stock dropped quite a bit. ASML dropped by 13% in the last month. ARM dropped by 8%. TSMC dropped by 6%. And some of these companies as well just released their earnings calls. And it's really important to understand why this is happening, because these companies are the ones that are feeding the whole AI mania. I mean, let's start with TSMC first. I mean, I'm sure you've gone through the earning reports. What's your thought on this? What do you think?
If you didn't know, TSMC is the biggest manufacturer of semiconductor in the world. And this month alone, it dropped about 8%. Most of the drop occurred in the last week, where they had their earning call. And based on their earning call, the consensus is that there is low demand, a lukewarm demand for semiconductors. And you have to remember that TSMC is the manufacturer of all the semiconductors from NVIDIA. They fuel, or they are the base of the AI mania that is happening in the market. So looking at their report, we can start reading signals of what might happen to the AI mania that is happening in the stock market right now. In general, the sales are down, especially because there is low demand in any other sector that needs semiconductors. That includes cars, EVs, smartphones, servers, data centers. But on the other side, there is a little bit more demand on the AI chips side. Stuff like GPUs and AI processors. But TSMC is saying that these demands are only going to contribute about 10 to 15% of growth for the company. As far as revenue is concerned, we are not even talking about margins. You will see that the US is moving to bring some of these manufacturers to the US. They are giving them government subsidies. I think a lot of semiconductor manufacturers are getting a lot of subsidies, namely Samsung, TSMC, Intel, Micron. All those companies are getting money from the government to bring manufacturing back home. But are sales going to reflect that money being spent?
So here we can see the drop in terms of their sales. We have the Q1 2024 that's highlighted there. And the drop in their net revenue is actually like minus 4%, drop by 4% comparing it to the quarter four of 2023. So here, I mean, we can do that comparison because, I mean, there is no seasonality in this business, right? And in terms of the drivers that you were referring to, I agree with some of the things that you said. And so this is basically the breakdown of their revenue. 46% goes into HPC, and then 38% into smartphone, and then 6% in automotive, and etc. etc. And you can see that big drop here is in smartphone. And I think that's basically what's driving the decline in their revenue, right?
And for people who don't know what HPC means, it stands for high performance computing. And this includes your AI accelerators, chips, GPUs, and AI processors.
As I said before, the smartphone are the main drivers. And I think in terms of customers, Apple is their main customer, right? And basically what we've seen as well in the past, in this first quarter, is that sales for Apple hasn't been good. And if you look at these data, you can see that Apple is now the second in terms of this quarter, the first quarter of 2024. Apple dropped to second, is not the largest smartphone manufacturer anymore. And Samsung is the first now. And overall, if you see the smartphone market, the market is growing and it grew at about 7.8%. But Apple, their sales declined by almost 10%. And this is not really good for Apple, and this has impacted TSMC as well.
Yeah, and if you're an Apple investor, you should really pay attention to this. Apple sales declining 11%. It should be a signal that something is happening in this market and the phone market in general.
Just one thing to point out here as well. You want to know more about the big winners, right? I don't know what this brand is, the Transsion, but Xiaomi is a big winner here. Their sales year over year jump by 33%. So basically, this is comparing with quarter one 2023 with quarter one 2024. So Xiaomi jumped really big. And I guess they are the main winner that I know of.
It's really crazy how Chinese companies are really competing these days with Western companies. Apart from the smartphone market, TSMC is also saying that the server market is seeing low demand. And the server market, when we talk about server market, we are mostly talking about data centers like AWS, Google, and Microsoft. Right now, they have a lifeline, which is AI. So everybody is investing in AI and is increasing the revenue and the growth because of compute. But if servers have a low demand, what it means is that for companies like SMCI, Supermicro, or Dell, which was one of the companies that Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, shout out in the last NVIDIA GTC, if demand for servers are going down, those companies might have a tough time in the future. Just based on TSMC's numbers and ASML numbers and what they said in their report, last week, Supermicro dropped just during the week about 20%. Just think about that. 20% drop in a week. I'm wondering what Dell stock looks like right now. Even NVIDIA is dropping. NVIDIA dropped about 16%. And Dell right now looks like is kind of flat over the month, but people haven't really caught up to this yet. That server demand is down.
I think, as you know, the market is very reactionary, right? Most of these are based on the information that a company releases. So if you take ASML, they released their Q1 earnings just a few days ago, I believe on the 17th of April. And just after that, even before that came out, there were some snippet of information that were leaking through the press, and people were aware of those. And based on that, quickly, a lot of people just started selling their stock. And another thing that I found quite important as well regarding the data centers is the fact that most of the executives from the large tech companies, here I'm even including Tesla in it, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and all the others, they've been talking about the power that's required. By power, I mean energy that's required to back those data centers to make them work. Basically, AI consumes tons of energy. That's basically what they are saying. And by the current rate, if AI were to go very mainstream, we wouldn't have enough energy to make it work. So it's not just about the compute, it's also about the energy. And TSMC is already feeling this because their outlook basically is saying that the operating margin is going to drop a little bit because of the the energy.
Not a little bit,
Not a little bit
a
actually.
lot
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Is going to drop. They are estimating that because of the earthquake and power for utility price going up. This year, it dropped margin by 52% this quarter, actually. And if it continues, they see their margin dropping from between 70 to 80%
Yeah.
if the hike in utility prices continue.
Yeah, something really interesting that I would like to see there, right? When a manufacturer's, let's say, input cost, by input, I mean everything that they are using as raw material and all the energy and the other stuff that they use to produce the product. When the input increases in terms of cost, most of them would likely pass on that cost to the customer. So
Yep.
they'll pass on that cost to, let's say, Nvidia, for example, and Nvidia will pass on that cost to Google, and Google will pass on that cost
Right.
to, I don't know, the end customer. So I really want to see if that's going to
Exactly.
happen, or they are going to take that cost on them. So the company is going to, their margin is going to drop, or the end customer price is going to go up. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go, but that's something that I'm looking forward to.
You can see in the broad market, inflation is everywhere. Everybody's spending more than they used to spend. And all this start from the commodities, right? Generation of energy. I don't think any company wants to eat or lose margin.
There is one thing that I watched, when the inflation was really, really high. They call it like shrinkflation. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that term,
Yes.
where they will, decrease like the bottle, for example, to have more
Exactly.
less content.
Right.
So is TSMC going to do something like that, shrinkflation of their chips that, Nvidia gets like a smaller amount, right? So that they can
Yeah.
get the stuff running. But I mean, looking forward, right? If you were the owner of, let's say, TSMC stock, I don't know if you bought some or not, but I haven't
I
bought
have
any.
some.
If you said you have some, right? You
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I'm a stock owner.
Okay,
Yeah.
of TSMC.
Yes.
What would you do? This is not an investment advice, but me, let me just give my thought on this first, and then you can jump on it. Me, if I bought this stock for December 2023, I'll hold on to it. Meaning the price is
Yeah.
going to be lower. Even if it drops, I think I will still get, a good value if I hold on to
Yeah.
it for like a year or two. But if I bought it in
Yeah.
2024, I'm definitely, definitely selling it.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree with you because I've been owning the stock for like about 2 years
Okay.
now. And once it started going up, I stopped buying. I knew it was going up because of the AI mania and everything else. But now that it's going to stop dropping, once it reaches my level, I'll start buying again. You have to remember that this is the biggest manufacturer of semiconductor in the world. So no matter what, as far as China doesn't go to Taiwan and start a war or anything like that, and they also able to build their factories here in the US, then I think the company will be okay because they are such a big player in this market, regardless of what happens. But the scary thing about this whole thing is that the knowledge they have, because they are trying to move some of these workers into the US. Basically, the planet needs more people who want to work on lithography and creating chips and stuff like that. This is not a very easy thing to do. You compare this to ASML, they have like a big machine that nobody can operate apart from them.
One thing that I would say that's is a little bit worrying for this whole thing is if the AI bubble were to burst completely. I think a month ago, everybody was comparing the AI to the whole .com era and etc. and how the .com era burst. And then it took few years or few months before it got back again. But the companies that were leading it, they all disappeared. So if something like that were to happen, yeah, that would be really, really crazy. And on that, I don't have any prediction at all. But what I can say for sure is that the way investors, I mean, like the real big investors, not the stock investor, I'm talking about people that put their money into companies and back, I mean, like venture capital and those stuff. The way those people used to treat AI as, if you have like AI in your name, you get like a backing, right? A few months ago, that's what was happening. But that is changing, I think. And I think that's going to impact things going forward. But really, I just hope that this AI bubble is not going to burst.
I would say if you want to retain anything from this conversation is that you have to remember that the AI run up or happen really quickly. And every time prices go up really quickly in the stock market, they tend to do the same way on the way down. Right?
Even faster.
Even faster, exactly. Because this week alone, SMCI lost about $200 on almost $1,000 stock price. You have to think there was mania and the mania is dying down. This is basically what it is. So these are the canaries in the coal mine telling you that the future for the AI mania is not so bright. Things are going to die down and you just have to prepare for it.
You are totally right. I mean, just few points on my side on ASML. In terms of their earning report, so these are, their main figures really. And for them, their net sales were the one that dropped quite a bit, dropped, I think, around by like 27%. These are in euro, by the way, euro million. So dropped by around 27, around 27%. I'm talking about these two figures, and impacted the margin as well. That dropped quite a bit. And according to them, the reason that they are giving is that they are building up inventory for the future and they expect sales to go up again. And the past quarter was really impacted by sales from China. So basically 40% of sales revenue comes from China. And there were some issues in China in the past few months regarding, the whole economy and all those things. So that was one of the main impact. But yeah, so I was going to say that going forward, they expect things to come back to normal. But one thing that I would highlight regarding them is that they have coming change in management. So their CEO is going to be retiring in the next few months or so. And he's going to be replaced by another guy. So that can be something important as well for the people that own this stock to know. And that could really impact, the performance of the company.
Couple of things on my side on ASML. Basically, their net sales or net revenue didn't really meet guidance. It was midpoint to the guidance that they gave. Given that about 40% of their sales is coming from China, you have to consider these things when you are buying this stock. On the US side, there is pressure on any manufacturer of semiconductor to not sell to China. There is pressure from the United States on ASML to not continue business with China. Even in Europe, there is pressure from the European Union to not sell chips to China. So you have to take that into consideration when you own this stock. Because if 40% of their sales is coming from there and they can no longer sell there, or for some reason they are restricting their business in China, then that means sales are going to drop even more. So you have to consider that. So Daniel, you've been working hard on a software that is going to allow you, if you are a stock investor, to do your research in a very easy way, especially if you like reading 10Ks, 10Qs, listening to earning calls, reading earning call transcripts. We've been working very hard. We've done 100 videos on AI on this channel. And just this week, you spent about 4 to 8 hours researching TSMC, ASML, and all the other stocks, right?
So on my side, to prepare my videos or to know more about stock as well and to invest in them, I try to get their annual report. In Europe is annual report, in the US is 10K. So you get their 10K report and then try to read it, understand it, and also do the same for their earning calls, the latest ones. And this process actually takes a lot of time, right? For this video, for example, I'm not an investor in TSMC and I needed to know more about them. So I did the same thing basically, and that took me quite some time. As I was saying, that took me around like 4 hours to really dive into those and really, really understand them. And the product that there is talking about is going to be a platform that's going to help us or help you guys do this in a more efficient way, which is why he's showing on the screen now. Yeah, go ahead.
This is the software that we are talking about. As you can see, we've done all this research. On my side, this took me the same research that Daniel did in 8 hours. I did almost in maybe 20 minutes. And the AI was basically helping me go through this earning call document from TSMC really quickly. The AI was suggesting the questions I should ask about this document, and it was giving me answers. So these are guidance information that were given during the earning call, forecasting about sales by sector from the company, stuff like smartphone sales going down and stuff like that. I didn't have to really read any of this. I just came here, searched for the company name. It showed me all the transcripts and earning and 10K filing that it had. I picked the one that I wanted and I just started asking questions to the AI, and the AI will only answer based on the document. It's not going to go and fabricate any information. And you can actually double check every answer that the AI is providing by clicking on the citation buttons and reading and comparing what the AI is saying to what is in the text. This saves so much time. I was able to do this in 20 minutes.